Undertale released about 10 years ago today to a massive success. Basically everyone loved it, with its multiple endings, endearing characters, and mysteries upon mysteries. Everyone has seen some theories on Undertale, regardless on whether the theories are well received or not. Then, a few years later, Chapter 1 of Deltarune was released, and with it came more mysteries and more questions. Then Chapter 2 released, with even more mysteries and even more questions. And that brings us now, 2025, with Chapters 3 and 4 releasing sometime this year, and Chapters 5 through 7 on the distant horizon. We all have our own thoughts on how Deltarune will end, and today, dear listeners, I would love to give my theory on the matter. So how will Deltarune end, you ask? Well, Rouse tells us in Chapter 2 that if there are too many dark fountains, then the world will be covered in a darkness in an event called the Roaring. That's the whole reason we're going around closing these fountains. So what's the problem if we're there to close the fountains? Simply that there's too many people opening fountains. We are constantly told that there's this mysterious night that opened the first two fountains that we've already closed. And we watch Chris open yet another fountain at the end of Chapter 2. We are unclear as to yet whether the knight opened his third fountain, but it's very likely that he did. And if that's not enough, then just you wait, because there's always the chance of Birdley and Noelle creating a fountain, since they were both there when the Queen told us how to open these dark fountains. And since Chris is the only one being able to close them all with his human soul, there is no feasible way of one person being able to close all of these fountains that are going to be popping up. And with the exponential growth of all of these dark fountains opening up, this is how I foresee the end of Deltarune. With all of these dark fountains being opened constantly, it will eventually set off the Roaring, dooming all the darkness to turn to stone, and the lightness to wander aimlessly in the dark. But worry not, good listener, as I do believe there is a chance for there to be a survivor. And that survivor is none other than our favourite, overpowered jokester, Sans the Skeleton. And Papyrus, of course. I know how that sounds, but hear me out. Back in Undertale, there's a lot of mystery surrounding these two brothers. The first one being that no one knows where they came from. The shopkeeper in Snowdin tells us that they just showed up one day and inserted themselves. Then there's also the fact in Genocide, Sans tells us that he gave up going back a long time ago. Then you've got the mysterious picture and the broken machine in Sans' basement. So, I propose, what if Sans took Papyrus to escape the Roaring in Deltarune by travelling to Undertale? And it can't return to Deltarune because of the darkness covering the world. The photo of people you don't recognise could just be Susie, Noelle, Birdley and Chris. But why doesn't Papyrus remember any of the events in Deltarune? Maybe it's just simply age. We haven't seen Papyrus in Deltarune just yet, so it's possible that Papyrus is simply just a young child when the Roaring happens, and the trauma of trying to escape the world ending could have caused that memory to be locked away from him. But wait, I've got more. When we meet Sans in Deltarune, he insinuates that he recognizes us, despite Chris never meeting him before. And since we know Chris hasn't met Sans during the events of Deltarune, I think it's safe to assume that he actually recognizes us, the player. But that begs the question, how does Sans recognize us? And this is about where my theory goes a bit off the tracks. Maybe the universe behind Undertale and Deltarune is a time loop, a bit of an Ouroboros situation. So we start in Deltarune, where we as Chris fail to stop the Roaring, and in a panic, Sans takes a young Papyrus through the multiverse into the universe of Undertale, To everyone else, it seems that they appeared out of nowhere, but they soon accept the new residents of Snowdin. This is where he will meet the player, us, in the events of Undertale, either during the pacifist or the neutral run. But then, somehow, through means unknown, he manages to make it back to Deltarune with a rebranded Grillbees, but not a grown-up papyrus. And that is how he can recognize us, the player, in Deltarune. Now, I'll be the first to admit that this has many plot holes, but the first half of this theory could seem plausible. We can only wait and see if I was even remotely close. And since we're waiting, try checking out that subscribe button down there. Only 1.7% of people watching are actually subscribed, and I would love to see that number grow sometime.